Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Cracking the Cryptic. Today we're going to do 6-13, which is puzzle number 16. It's a non-consecutive Killer King Sudoku. Now I needed a break after doing puzzle 15, so I went to the other sample pack, this variety pack definitely feels like you should do it first, and it definitely feels like in the menu it should be the very top option. But yeah, we did a simple sandwich Sudoku in the last recording, and it took 71 minutes, which is my new best time for solving any of this. It's a little rude to have your menu here be get this DLC of Line's Variety Pack and then get this DLC of Domino Sudoku with a sample pack of just 3 domino puzzles. And then you have to scroll all the way down to the bottom to get to the free packs. And yes, I know it's a free-to-play game, and I know they're trying to sell you to buy the vast majority of the puzzles, but it's not creating the best situation. In fact, it's creating a pretty poor situation for new players to Sudoku, or people who are new to, say, the Studio Goya Sudoku games, which Studio Goya games, Sudoku games on Steam are still probably your best bet for Sudoku. Sudoku Universe, I looked on their discussions board, and there was many posts of entire codes that had been bugged and just had not been game tested. And one thing you can say for these super difficult variants of basic Sudoku is that they are at least tested and highly unlikely to have bugs in them to the point where you can't actually logically solve things. Even if it did have a bug, the interface of Cracking the Cryptic is good enough that you would quickly know if there was a problem and be able to adjust it, unless you just absolutely screw up, which I was able to do in the past by just putting absolutely the wrong information in the boxes. So, I've never done a king Sudoku. We've done killer Sudokus. We see the killer box. King, I would assume, is probably like a knight's Sudoku, in that it probably has some ruling that numbers cannot be touching. The classic rules, let's just read the rules, are classic Sudoku. The numbers 1 through 9 must be in every row and column and box exactly once. That is going to be pretty much always enforced, because if you weren't enforcing classic Sudoku rules, then you're not really playing Sudoku at all, are you? You're just playing some other kind of number puzzle that happens to be in a 9x9 grid. King says that the same number cannot appear twice within the king's move, the 8 cells directly surrounding each of the cell, which inherently, I think before we even go any further, we could probably say something about this. Since a king's move would be only 1 square in any direction, and since the rule says that the same number can appear twice, the only places where a king's move matters is along the edges of the entire puzzle. The rule simply is not going to be enforced anywhere else. That's still a lot of places, but it does highlight something here. There are several spots where the numbers can ignore the king move. Let's see if we can highlight those and color those in. Then Yes, these are the only spots. We'll just mark them in gray. Where the king's move doesn't apply. And that might be pointless to mark that in, but whatever. And maybe I should have used the lighter gray, but I'm not going to redo that. That would be a waste of time. Then there is also a variant that says non-consecutive. Two directly adjacent cells cannot contain consecutive numbers. Forever, if one cell contains a 5, the 4 in the neighboring cells cannot be 4 or 6. Are we including diagonal when we say adjacent? I would assume so, because I do think that's what the word adjacent means. And from that logic, then you are in a weird situation where there's no way to solve this puzzle if diagonal is correct. And I'm translating the word adjacent correctly, because let's just consider this scenario here with this roll. If you had 9 here, somewhere around here, 8 is going to be touching directly, either diagonally or this way. There's just no way around it, just by rules of basic Sudoku. And that is true if this was a 1, then number 2 would be somewhere around here. If this was a 5, then a 4 and 6 would be around here. So adjacent must not mean diagonal. It must only mean north, south, east, and west of each spot. See, I wish I could kind of highlight this and maybe even get a dictionary definition of the word adjacent, or just even highlight the rule to remind myself of that. And then we also have killer variants, where the cells in must sum to the number in the top left, and numbers cannot be repeated. Which it seems like, since there are no hints here, that's probably got to play a pretty big role. But I think what we're going to have happen is a lot of synergy between a couple of roles. Let's see. If we're believing the diagonal rule, that's going to change how we evaluate these 2 boxes and these 2 boxes. What we could do is highlight all of that and then see if what 3 combinations, 3 digits with the goal of 21 would be. We could start there. So let's highlight those. Let's mark all the possibilities there. Then this is a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8, and 9. And very quickly, that's going to turn into a triple, almost certainly. And we can take that same secret knowledge, what he calls the secret, to see that this combined sum is 33, which leaves me only 12 as a combination to search for, which actually increases your possibilities by having smaller numbers here. So in this case, the possibilities are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. It's every single number. I think we will boil that down pretty quickly. At the very least, I think it probably helps. If we were to instead try and fill in like this box here, knowing that you have 7 digits and that you're going for 39, that's every digit possible. Also, and so just very quickly, I'm going to mark every box here. Yeah, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then if we were to take these digits, which is also 7, and try and sum up to 32, I believe. That's also every digit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But these are places that we're going to work with, I think, fairly quickly. It seems to me it's fairly possible you're going to make most of your progress in these boxes, and then you'll cross over slowly over the edges to the rest of these boxes, which have no hints in them. Alright. So, now let's just consider scenarios here. If this was a 1 and a 6, and then this was a 2 and 5, that would violate the king's move rule. I mean, it wouldn't violate the king's move rule. It will violate the non-consecutive rule. So it can't be 1, 1, 6, 2, 5. It could be 1, 5, 6, 2. But then, if that was the case, and it was still diagonal, was considered adjacent, then the 1, 2 here and the 6, 5 here would be still consecutive numbers. Okay. And then if this was 1, 3, 6, 4, there'd be absolutely no problems there, even diagonally. But the diagonal rule can't be in play. Adjacent must be just north, south, east, west. Two directly adjacent cells cannot contain consecutive numbers. It's just no way to solve a Sudoku if it means that way, looks that way. And probably, as soon as you figure out one number, you're going to have likely a pattern where these numbers are going to be, if this is even, all of these will be even 2. And if this is odd, all these numbers will be odd 2. And then you'll also have a counter pattern where all the numbers in the corner are going to potentially have some value, which might mean looking at these corners as a possibility. Particularly with 2 combinations. So let's see if we can make some progress here. We'll just put in 1 through 6 as a possibility here. Then we'll look at the combinations here and see that it is not 1 through 6 because 4 is not available. It's 1, 2, 3, then 5, 6, 7 as a possibility. Then here It's 1 through 8 as a possibility. And then the king's rules are going to affect things as far as duplicate numbers. So once we get to this point, it'll affect what the possibilities are for this. Which seems like everything except for 5 is a possibility here. And then 1 is no longer a possibility in a sum of 11. We've hit a minimum limit there. And then 2 is no longer a possibility. And 6 is not a possibility. So we're probably starting here, and then we're just going to have to recursively work our way back this direction. Since we're filling in numbers, might as well do the 1 and 5 and 2 and 4 possibility there, and the 4 and 9 and 5 and 8 and 6 and 7 possibility there. Okay. So, of all the possible numbers, if we are assuming that adjacent means north, south, east, and west, is there a scenario where a certain number absolutely cannot work? If I put a 2 here, could there be 4 and then 6, then 8? You can't just have all odd, all even numbers. But something seems to imply to me, and I'm not sure I fully understand why I think this, that is the case, is that they would have to all be even numbers, which probably means that the remaining numbers would have to be the center number and the plus here has to be odd numbers, because you have 5 spots here and you only have 4 spots here, and 2, 4, 6, 8 are your even numbers. And I'm not sure I follow the reason why that's the case. So let's actually just do some speculation here and learn, because we're going to have to learn this. So if I put this as a 2, and then get out of this mode, I mark that as a 4, and we're going to just remember to erase all this later. 8. The only number that couldn't be here is a 3. This could be a 5. And then we could put a 3 here, which is fine. We could put a 1 here, which seems fine. And then 7 becomes the hassle, because we can't put a 7 here or a 7 here. So could we put a 7 here or a 7 here? No. Okay. Let's move this to being a 7 instead of a 5 and evaluate that now. 3 being here still is fine. 3 couldn't be here or here. 1 could be here or here. 5 could be here. Okay. And then 1 or 9. 9 could be here. And 1 could be here. So that doesn't work because 5 has to be here, and that's 1 away from that. Okay. So I probably need to consider a bunch of other scenarios to fully, in my mind, see all the scenarios, but I'm gonna trust my instincts a little bit and say that this just can't be an even number at all. Instead of trying, say, a 4 here, a 6 here, or an 8 here, I think the one-off pattern pretty much applies anywhere. If it wasn't going to apply to one of the patterns, it would have been 2 or 8, which would have been on the edges. 4 and 6 wouldn't have been good candidates to test. That being said, let's now try an odd number, because we know something has to work here. Right. An odd number would then have all the even numbers in the corner, I think. Well, actually, that's probably the wrong way to go. The odd number can't have a 2 or 3 or 2. Well, it can't have a 2 in any of these. So 2 in a corner does make sense. So that step makes sense. But then if we were to put a 3 here, a 5 here, a 7 here, and a 9 here, then 4 being here wouldn't work. 4 would have to be over here. 6 could be over here, which wouldn't work. Well, 4 in this, if it's just supposed to be all odd numbers, 4 would have to be over here. Then we need a 6. 6 can't be here. 6 can't be here. 6 can't be here. I would have to put this as a 5. Then 4 can't be here. If that's the case, it unravels. It unravels very quickly. 6. Let's see, where can we put a 4 now? Put a 4 here or here. Where can we put an 8? We can put an 8 here or here. Where can we put a 9? We can put a 9 almost anywhere. So 4. So you kind of have to have a pairing here. And then 8 and 9. So that does seem like that would work in that one scenario, but in this one scenario only, there's extremely limited possible solutions there compared to your just basic Sudoku. And if the diagonal rule, if adjacent included diagonal, there's just no way to solve the puzzle. My only other thought is, what if we tried with 5 in the middle? Just smack dab in the middle of the number line and see what that feels like. If we put a 5 here, then we can't have a 4 in any of those, so let's just go ahead and put a 4 here. We can't have a 6 in any of those, so let's at least temporarily put a 6 there. Okay. And then my assumption here is that we can kind of fill out the rest of these pretty easily. Just odd numbers on this spot. And then we just need to put the 8 over here, which we can't do. So there's extra rulings on this. And basically, I think what you're doing is you're creating a pair here that should be 2 away. This should be 2 away from this, and this should be 2 away from this, and then that means this pair should not be the one in the middle, and this pair should not be the one in the middle, which, so 6 and 8 is not what you're looking for to put there, so that has to be 2, and then that leaves your 6 going here. So using that knowledge, as we're just learning here and spending 10-20 extra minutes on it, let's try again with 6. 6 would be 4, 6 would be the bad candidates I said to test with, but I want to prove it's impossible. So if 5 can't be anywhere, then 5 has to be here. If 7 can't be anywhere, then 7 has to be here. Since this is 2 away from this, 6 can't be here, that's not a problem. 8 can't be here, but I suppose 4 or 2 could be there at that point. And let's see. I think we could probably just randomly say 1 and 9 should be here, but let's not do that. 2 wouldn't be a problem here, 2 wouldn't be a problem here, 8 wouldn't be a problem here, but 8 would be a problem here. So let's just put the 8 there and the 2 there. And then the question is there another way to solve all this? Well, 9 can't be here, so 9 could be here and here. 1 can't be here, so 1 can be here and here. You have a 9-1 possibility there. And then 5 could be any, well, we've already done 5, so it's not. 3. 3 can't be here, 1 can't be here. So one of these has got to be a 3. One of these has got to be a 1. And then that would leave 9. So did I just find a possibility that disproves what I was thinking before? Again, diagonally, if that counted, that'd be a problem. But I don't see a problem. No, here's a problem. You have a 5 here, so the 4 can't be here. Let's change that to, I guess, a 1 instead. Should change that to a 4 instead, which means then this 3 can't be here and this 3 can't be here. And I do think you're just going to constantly run into that problem. So with a small amount of confidence, most of my confidence has been shattered by these puzzles already, I'm going to assume that my logic is correct. Which then, maybe it isn't wise to eliminate the 2 and 4 here. I mean, that doesn't change too much. But I probably shouldn't start at that spot. I should probably start at this spot. The only one that is up, down, left, right in the plus sign would be this one and this one. There's more options on this one, so we probably are starting here. We need odd numbers, so it's probably not 2 and 6 at that point. So we're going to start taking that as true. We could also look at each of these combinations and say this isn't 3 and 4 here, because those two numbers would have to be touching each other, consecutive numbers. It's not 4 and 5 here, because those would be consecutive numbers. It's not 4 and 6, because those would be consecutive numbers. It's not 5 and 6. And here it's not 5 and 7. 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, this still being the biggest thing. And then we don't have consecutive numbers on that one. And we do have 6 and 7 consecutive numbers on that one. Okay. That gets us down to some possibilities. It does definitely feel like we're starting here. So if this was 1 and 7, then this could be 6 and 1. No, it could not, because then the 1 would be repeated. This would have to be 2 and 5. So if this was 1 and 7, and this was 5, and this was 2, that would work. If this was 3 and 5, then it couldn't be 2 and 5. The 3 and 5 could be 6 and 1. So they definitely are going to crisscross and reflect each other. In this quadruple of possibilities, though, it is 1 and 7 is the possibility, which then would make this 2 and 5, or this is 1 and 6, which would then make this 3 and 5, which makes a pair of 1s and 5s that cannot be in this combination. So this is not 1 or 8, nor are these 5s. Okay. Perhaps we consider this further now. If this is 1 and 7, and then this would be 2 or 5, what would the options be over here? 3 and 6. So that seems to work. If this was 3 and 5, and then this was 1 and 6, what would the options be? 2 and 7. So they all are going to indicate the next solution. Is there a pattern that gets broken? It'd be hard to see this. We probably should be marking these a little bit more delicately at this point. Let's just remark this. Gonna 1 and 6 up here, and then remove the 1 and 6 down here. So you know it's either 1 and 6 or 2 or 5. And I'm gonna 1 and 7 over here, and then remove the 1 and 7 there, so we know it's either 1 and 7 or 3 and 5. And then that way we can get the information on the field instead of having to look over here for the information. So if this was 1, 7 like this, just this way, and it almost, I imagine, doesn't even matter if I flipped it the other way and the 7 was here and the 1 is here, because it's just going to create the same scenario. that I'm looking for, or at least the same outcome that I'm looking for either way. Like 1 7 here means 5 2 here, and it means a 3 could be here. The 6 couldn't be here, so it would be 6 3. In that scenario, looking at that, if a 6 was here, then that would just stop 7 from being here. And if there was a 3 here, that would just stop 2 or 1. So that would tell me, if this is 3 6, that this is probably 3 7. Which still seems doable. In the other scenario, if this was a 3 5, then this would be a 1 6. At that point, since this is a 5, it would actually be 6 1. And then if this was 3 5, then this would have to be 7 here, 2 here. Yeah, and so if a 7 was here, then it could be 3 7 this way, or an 8 2. Yeah, this is getting complicated very quickly. And I don't fully see the end. I definitely don't fully see the end. It seems like what may happen here is that we will find the connecting point of a plus here that has to be odd numbers. We're taking that as gospel, and the connecting point of this plus, so these two spots, are going to have to synergize. So taking this as gospel, then it can't be 2 9. We'll just get rid of the 2 9s. And it can't be 4 7, which leaves us with 3 8 as a possibility. If we're going to believe that, then let's take that to the next step, where we'll add a 3 and an 8 to everything, to then remove 3 and 8 from everything. Which then, that means this can't be 3 9 or 4 8. And at some point I eliminated 5 7 as a possibility here, or didn't add 5 7 as a possibility. How did that happen? So this is the spot, and if I can even identify it, that probably highlights something. But this is the spot, I think, where I'm going to go off the rails. No, I'm wrong about this. Yeah, it doesn't have to be eliminated just because. Well, the 3 8 pair does say that that couldn't be there. So maybe this is wrong, or maybe I prematurely got rid of 4 and 7. Yeah, I need to find out if what I thought was the case was true or not. And this is going to be an example, I guess, where we probably determined that what I thought was true is wrong. Because if this was 3 and 8, that's an even number, too. In fact, there isn't a single scenario here that doesn't have an even number in it. So I'm wrong. So I've learned nothing about pluses. So let's just ignore that rule for the time. It doesn't always work, which means it's not really a rule. Okay, I'm glad we didn't go too far in that direction. So we'll just go back and mark everything as still being a possibility. Then, did we legitimately determine that a 4-6 shouldn't be capable of being here? Let's just reset that. And then let's also add the 8 back up to this because we took the 8 out. It's a possibility. Now what we don't have, if there's no 1 here, then we know the 1 is down here. That's pretty much all we can determine. If there was no 2 here and no 2 here, then we could determine the 2 is down here. And if there was no 3 here and no 3 here, then we could determine that. But I think that's pretty much impossible. This could be 4, and this could be 5 in the low digits numbers. And that would be the only way that then we'd have a 1, 2, 3 triple here, which would possibly help out. And I would say almost undoubtedly the situation here. I don't know why we eliminated 6, 7, so I'm just going to put it back. And then we can elevate this a little bit to make this a little bit easier to read, although I'm not sure that's that much easier to read. The pairings here, I think, are we eliminated 6, 7, come to think of it, because it's a consecutive number, and that we are right about. So we also, I imagine, may have eliminated a pattern here of 5, 6 for the same reason. And then seems like we're fairly safe with the other patterns. 4, 5's not available, and 3, 4 is not available. So this is a great point where I would just like to see a transparency piece of paper that I could just make a snapshot or something and experiment. Because the thought pattern here would be, if this is 1, 6, let's just see if we can actually mark it, and we'll just try and emulate what we're seeing down here, since we've got nothing else we can do with that. If this was 1 and then this was 6, that was 1 and that was 6, then it could be either 3, 5 with a 5 here and a 3, or a 7 here and a 1, which couldn't be 7 and 1 because then there'd be 2 1s in the boxes, so it'd have to be a 5 and then a 3, right, which then it couldn't be a 3 6, so it's got to be a 2 7, which would mean that would have to be 2, and that would have to be 7. And see, now I've run out of paper to work, so let's put this box over here and just ignore this middle box. If this is next to a 2 7, then it could be an 8 2, it could be a 9 1, it could be, can't be a 3 7, and it could be a 6 4. There's just too many possibilities at that point. And maybe we don't need to cross the barriers to look at this next cube. And I don't think I would really benefit from looking at this next cube, this next killer cage, or this next killer cage. The question, I guess, to ask here is, can we fill in the remainder of this box with the remaining numbers, following the one away things? Because we would need a 4, an 8, and a 9. And if I did 4, 8, 9 here, that's fine. If I did 8, 4, 9, that would be wrong. 8, 9, 4 would be fine. If I did 9, 4 here would be wrong. But 9, 8, 4 would work. So that seems like there are several possible solutions to fill in the last 3 digits. So then let's change this. And yeah, inherently I guess you could flip this whole thing upside down, at which point the 152 would be here, and then if I was to put a 489 next to that, there's still plenty of possible solutions where you wouldn't run into problems there. So let's instead change it to a 2. Let's see, 2 and then 5. Yeah, so if this is a 2 and 5 this time, then we've somehow determined 2 and 6 is not valid in this group. I hope that's right. If it's 2 and 5, then it's got to be a 1 and 7, which would have to then be 7 and 1. I'm gonna have to make a lot of assumptions here to get started and make any further progress. And then if it's a 2-7, it can't be 2-7. It would have to be 3-6, which would then make that have to be 3. Would have to make that 6. This would give you a combination of 4, 8, and 9. But you could go 8, then 4, then 9 that way. And you could go 8, then 9, then 4 that way. You could put an 8 here, and a 4, and a 9 that way, or a 9 and a 4 that way. And then you could put a 9 here, a 4 in here. So you just have a lot of options. And even if you flipped it upside down so that the numbers were 2, 7, and 3 that you were trying to match, you could still do a 4, a 9, and an 8. Fine. So there's just a lot of possibilities. Nothing's getting eliminated down to one possible and only one possible scenario. So I am confused as to what the next trick is. And we may just have to hit a smart hint in the interest of saving time 49 minutes into this puzzle. We just don't have any hard confirmation on how this would play out. Can we even guarantee that a 1 would be in this row? If we could guarantee that, that might be helpful. But we've somehow determined that 1, 8 won't work. And I hope that's true. Otherwise I've made a mistake. Yeah, a 1, 6 here and a 3, 5 here. I don't know why 1, 8 couldn't fit here. And honestly, I may be better off just reading the first written hint, because there's a fundamental concept around this King Sudoku part that I'm not following. Let's see, smart hints can't be generated. Check the handwritten hints. So yeah, I'm not gonna have a choice anyways on that. In these specific boxes where the King's rule doesn't really apply, is there something special or a special number there? If there is, that's yet another thing that I think the handwritten note's just gonna have to teach me. Okay. 4 in box 4 cannot be in a cage with a 3 or 5. So the 3, yeah, I see that the 4 is not an option of what I've done. So the 3 uncaged digits must be so the 3 uncaged digits in the box, which sum up to 21, must be 4, 8, 9, with the 8, 9 separated. Okay. I see why I didn't get that, but I don't feel like that's too crazy of what I was supposed to have figured out. I just missed it. Yeah, we didn't, I think, ever get to this point. I feel like I probably just, by basic Sudoku, put all the number possibilities in here, instead of saying, well, if I have only 3 digits, and if I had used the calculator to sum all of this up to say 21, then I would have come over here and selected 21, then if we know 4 has to be included, you eliminate those two scenarios, and then that gives you 4, 8, 9, and that was the starter solution here that you would have to find. If you don't find that one part of the puzzle, you are never going to make any other progress, I bet. Okay. I guess the question then becomes, what can we do with that information further? I think at the core of it, you can't do anything more with just this information, but I think it complements this information. So let's do the exact same thing. We'll select this and see that we need a 12 in these 3 spots. 3 digits, trying to get a 12, which could be anything, but it can't have an 8 or 9 in it, or a 4. So it's either 1, 5, 6 or 2, 3, 7. And we don't have a 3 marked in here, and we should probably have a 3 marked. Okay. So we're gonna add as a superset 1, 5, 6. And then come down here, add the 3, remove the 1, and remove the 5 and the 6 for 2, 3, 7 as your 2 possibilities. So now what I'm looking for is combinations that would eliminate the possibility, just guaranteed to eliminate the possibility. 7 and 8 can't touch each other. That's really the only move here that would be a problem. So, and 1, 5, 6 would have to have a 1 in the middle or a 7 in the middle, which we can mark that, I guess, even now, that this is either going to be 1 or 7. We'll get rid of the 1, 5, 6 superset. Also means that the 1 here can go away, and the 7 here could go away. And the 1 here can go away. And then the 7 here can go away. Okay, that reduces some combinations. If there was a 4, 7 here, this would be a 1. And that would tell me something. If there was a 3, 8. 1, 3, 6. Would eliminate this from being 3. And what was the other possibility? 7, 5, 6? No, that can't be it. 2, 3, 7. I need to stay here on this screen and try and not use the calculator, but I can't do that because I want to see these combinations. So I guess it's probably best to, just so we don't forget it, add the 1 here, and then add the 7 here. Even though we know 1 and 7 is going to be here, just leave it there. So that lets me click on these combinations to consider things. 156 would let a 29 be through, a 38 be through, and a 47 be through. Whereas a 239 or 237 wouldn't let that happen, wouldn't let that happen, and wouldn't let that happen. And we know it can't be 56. So 237 is not the answer. It's 156. If we can confirm that by just marking this as a 1. Right. And then we'll select these 2 and bring this down to that. Look at that. And there might be some things we can take from this. Let's look at this combination. If 1's already set, it can't be that. And 6 is set, it can't be that. Which means we can demark the 9s and the 4s and 6s, which that gives me a 2-8 possibility or a 3-7 possibility. So we're narrowing things down quite a bit now. Then if we have a 156, we know it can't be 57. Could be 3-9 or 4-8. Did we mark these as possibilities? Seems to me like 2-9 would be difficult to get any other way, but it does seem like there's still ways. 2-9 is viable. 3-8 is viable. 4-7 seems viable. But that it actually may not be. It may be very much that if this is a 3-7, this is a 4-8. Therefore 4-8 is not viable here. If this is not a 4-8 but a 3-9, then this would have to be a 2-8, which means then 4-8 is also not, or 3-9, 2-8, which would make 3-8 not viable. Let's just take a second, think this all through, and go through it again, because I think something can be eliminated here. A 4-8 here makes this 3-7. That would make 3-7, 4, and 8 not viable. So this couldn't happen and this couldn't happen. It would make it 2-9. That's a possibility, which would be viable. If we flip things around and say this is 3-9, then this would have to be 2-8. Then you'd have 2-8, 3-9 eliminated, and it would be 4-7 as the other option. 4-7 seems viable, and but maybe 2-9's not viable. Maybe 3-8's not viable. Yeah, let's experiment here. If this was 3-8, you've got 3-8 here, which is what I thought it was before. Maybe that's the exact wrong one. Then the 3 and 8 would be taken up. Should make this have to be 3 and 9, so that won't work. So this cannot be 3-8. And that feels right. That feels like this is the spot we're supposed to end up in. And I'm not sure we can do too much more, but we could potentially fill in some triples as far as possibilities here and just mark them as triples. So in this, we know it is going to be 2, 3, and 7 in that spot, which then eliminates any possibilities of 2, 3, 7 in the rest of the box. But more importantly, because of the non-consecutive rule, we straight up know that this has to be 7. And then no real problems here as far as the connecting edges. So I don't think we can go any further. Let's just go ahead and unhighlight it since we've already made more progress. And that's going to get us ends into these corner sections eventually. We can, I guess, maybe try that again by looking at all the possibilities. Is there a number that has to be in this spot? I think 5 does. I don't see a single possibility of a 5 in this row. Nope, there is a 5. And there's a 5, so I'm just doing a really poor job. So eventually, I think we may have a triple there. But unless they are planning on me just testing out every pattern, which maybe I need to do that, maybe that's the solution, is that there's literally only one way this can go. I'm not sure I have much of another option. Okay, let's do it again. We did this once. If this is 2, then this would be 5. That would make this 1. That would make this 7. And then that would make this 6. And this 3. Nope, I didn't flip it right. Would make this 7 and make this 1, which would make this 3. It alternates. 3 and 6. So that's assuming this is 2, 5, and that gets us to this point, which then we'll move over here and fill in the rest of that. So we know it can't be 3, 7 at that point because a 3 and a 7 would be here. So it's got to be 2, 8. But it also can't be 2, 8. It's got to be 8, 2. Alright. Then could this be 4, 7? That point. Yeah, the alternating up and down also seems to parallel, or if not be directly connected, to the alternating of the possibilities of combinations. It can't be 2, 9. There's just a 2 in this row and a 2 in this row already. It's 2 here and 2 here. So it's got to be 4, 7. So, and that's legitimately got to be 4 there and a 7 there. And then 4, 8, both already in this row, which would make this have to be 3, 9, which would have to be flipped up, side down, 9, 3. And so far, that seems like that works. We can even kind of throw in the bottom parts here, where this would have to be a 4, and then this would have to be an 8 or 9 or 8 or 9. That works fine. And then this would have to be a 1, and this would have to be a 5 or 6 or 5 or 6. That works fine. If we flip this upside down and this 4 was touching this 7, 8 or 9 here, 8 or 9 here, it doesn't matter, still works fine. 1 being here, and then a 5 or 6 and 5 or 6 here works fine. So I'm going to just leave this pattern here, but we probably should highlight it in, let's go with blue since I hate blue, so we know for a fact that this is speculation on my part. Then yeah, there's gonna, if my math is correct here, my guess is correct, there's gonna be 4 possible solutions. It's gonna be this row and then this row below, or this row and then this row at top, reversed. It's not gonna matter too much. Something eventually will probably force it into being one way or the other. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what does actually force it into one way or the other. Otherwise there is possibly 2 different solutions, and yeah, what's going to force it has got to be something from this box or something from this box. Moving on though, my move now, well, let's just go ahead and highlight this too for more speculation. My new move is going to say, well, if this wasn't 2, 5, if this was just 1, then 6, then it would have to be 5, then 3, then this. Could this be 6 and 3? No. Could it be 3 and 6? No. It's got to be 2, 7. Can it be 7 and 2? No. It's got to be 2, 7 as spoken. Then a 2. This could be 8, 2, I suppose. But it couldn't be 3, 7. And it can't be 2, 8. So it has to be 8, 2. The only way I'm even getting this far is because I spent all that extra time marking the possible combinations and reducing the possible combinations by marking them on the paper. If I was having to go back and click on each of these cubes to see the possible combinations each time, I would just redundantly waste so much energy and effort. It would drive me mad if I had to do that, and I would have just not ever tried or bothered. I would have just gone for a hint. This could be 9, 2. Could it be 4, 7? Well, wait, no, it can't be 9, 2. There's a 2 here and a 2 here, so it can't be 9, 2. And there's a 7 here, so this has to be 7, 4. Then the last one, then could be 4, 8. But if it was 4, 8, then there would be a 4 in the same box. So that's not going to work. Could it be 3, 9? I think it can be 3, 9, but it couldn't be 9, 3 because there's a 3 in that row. So that should be showing the 2 possible combinations. And then we can plug in the bottom part here and see that 4 doesn't work in this scenario because 3 is 1 away from 4, nor if we flipped it upside down, 4 is 1 away from 5. So we know actually this can't be 3, 5. And we could have probably just figured that out ourselves. So let's just go on a tear and see if our logic is correct. We could mark a lot of things wrong here. But the first thing to test would be to just hit 1 and see if that's correct. And this will actually clear out, I think, a lot of the information as I type it in. We could have also tested the 1, 5, 6 here, but the 1, 5, 6 would have worked on either sides of the 7 and 4. Right. So if this is 1, we know that's 7. Then that's got to be 2. That's got to be 5. That's got to be 3. That's got to be 6. That's got to be 8. Then that's got to be 2. Almost was confused there. That's got to be 4. That's going to be 7. What this is highlighting, though, is a major problem without having a transparency or an overlay. The hypertext and the pencil mark are pretty good, but they're not great if you just want to consider an entire scenario. And a lot of the previous puzzles we've done have required you to really think of another scenario, but not really left enough empty spaces where you could just get a sheet of paper. And I imagine even Cracking the Cryptic sometimes just has a piece of paper next to him and a pencil to write down a scenario and consider it. When a digital version of a video game, of a paper game like Sudoku, probably does just really need those kinds of features added into the interface. I might be more forgiving if this was just a mobile game, but even then I probably wouldn't be that forgiving because it's just not really that necessary. This could be 2 or 5 here, so let's not deal with this quite yet because we haven't fully figured it out. Although if the combination here was 5, then this would have to be 1, which seems like that would be fine. And is there a reason why this is not possibly 6? I don't see a reason why that shouldn't be 6. I think that's a typo. We can now just put the outies, the outlying numbers on this row, which would be 1 and then 5 and then 6. That inherently means this has to be 1 and this is a 5, 6 possibility, and this is still a 2, 3 possibility. No, I'm losing pencil markings for some reason. Unless it is removing pencil markings based on some logical non-consecutive reason, or based on a king's move reason. But I'm not ready yet to embrace and understand that. The other options here would be 4, and then 8 and 9, which inherently that means this has to be 4, leaving that with an 8 and 9. And I don't think that creates a pattern here that's really that big of a deal, because if this was 8 or 9, this could be 5 or 6, this could be 2 or 3. Same as the case over here. It's just going to have an X crisscross pattern to it. But we've made significant amounts of progress here. And in that, we can take this a little bit further and then say 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 9. Then I guess we could work on some things individually here and say, well, this can't be 2 and this can't be 8. And no guarantee, so we'd have to get it down to a group of 3 numbers, not 5, to figure out what the middle number would be. We could probably individually also just start removing possibilities on these numbers. Is this accurate? A 1 can't be here, a 3 can't be here, a 5 can't be here, a 6 can be there, a 7 can't. And why is 8, 9 not viable? Seems like 8, 9 would be viable in every other case. So I'm going to add 8, 9 back up, since I don't see a reason why. Unless it is diagonals. But no, we know it's not diagonals. We've locked in numbers, and diagonally you have a 1 and a 2 and a 3. Here you have a 1 and a 2 diagonally, 1 away, and a 7 and an 8 diagonally here. Okay, moving on. This spot then can't be an 8. That helps very little. Spot here can't be a 2. And the 5 and the 6 here doesn't guarantee anything has to be removed. And the 7 here would just be 8 and 6. So get rid of 6. So now that we've solved everything, the major next step to this, we had to solve this first to get into this. Then we had to run major scenarios to see that only one of them would fit. And maybe we could have done a little bit less there. We could have possibly just run this and then run the possibilities here, and then very quickly confirmed that that wouldn't have worked. But I still kind of feel like I needed to solve this part too. just to be certain. Anyways, this 9 eliminates 4, 9 as a possibility. So we know that this is 5 and 8. So get rid of the superset there. And if we've got a 5-8 pair, then we can appropriately remove the 5s and the 8s as a possibility. Then let's look at this up here. Could this be 5-1? Yes. Could this be 2-4? Yes. Could this be 4-2? No. So we can at the very least get it down to that. If this is 5 and 8, that may give us some information about this later on. If this was 5, well, we know this is actually 5 and 8, don't we? That's the only possibility. Which means then this can't be 5, so it has to be 6. Okay. And that means this is 5. We'll finish our first box. Further, that means this has to be 8. And this has to be 5. Because 5 cannot be here next to the non-consecutive rule. Okay. And seemingly that's gotten this down to a 3-9. With this extra information, we can get rid of 5 and 4. I mean, well, 6 and 4. That's what I was trying to get rid of. It'd be kind of a hard journey to get down to just one remaining digit going any further. The ones in here and yeah, this could still be 5 and 1 up here, or it could be 2 and 4 up here. The weirdness here is I don't think I could fill in this entire empty box with just digits, and we could reduce a little bit, but if I was going to do that, I should probably fill in this box only. We'll just give it every possible number 1 through 9. Then a 5 and a 3 should be removed from that, and an 8 because of that should be removed. Then a 1 should be removed from that, and then an 8 and 6 from that, and a 2 and 4 should be removed from that, and also a 3 should be removed from that because there's a 3 there, and also a 7 should be removed from that because there's a 7 there, and a 2 should be removed from that for just basic Sudoku reasons. 4 should be removed from that. Also 1 and 7 should be removed. I didn't even look at the columns when I did this. So that gets us to 269, which is fairly manageable in that column. Two, 3, 5, 9 seems fairly manageable. 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9's still pretty long. 1, 5, 7, 8, 9 still pretty long. But that's not crazy long. I doubt though we are anywhere close to just basic rules of Sudoku kicking in and helping in any way. And yes, I could go further and fill in more of the digits. Then at least I would be in that process of being able to do what I'm doing right now and it actually work and not lead to just a bunch of mistakes. Whereas right now, since I see there can only be one 6 in this box, my first knee-jerk instinct was to mark that as a 6, but that's wrong. It's very wrong. We haven't even considered these other boxes yet. And the game is unlikely to make you recognize that, or unlikely to let you get lucky like that. There almost needs to be an algorithm in games like this where if you make a lucky guess, it should highlight that. And certainly you in Sudoku, the first instinct would be to say, well, that's a negative thing and you should be penalized because you guessed and you couldn't have solved this with direct logic. But in video game form, you probably should be rewarded for that with something. You just get the lucky achievement, basically, for you made a lucky guess that couldn't have been solved by logic, or you cheated with a walkthrough. And maybe you just do it once. Maybe you don't turn it into a point where you get like lucky coins, and lucky coins due to lucky guesses can then be used for hints. But maybe you do that way too. I wouldn't hate a tutorial experience around classic Sudoku where they said, the tutorial said, we're not going to tell you any rules at all. We're going to give you a Sudoku puzzle that is filled in with everything except for the center number. You just guess what the number is, and then make someone who knows nothing about Sudoku just try every single number or try to pattern recognize the missing number in a 9x9 grid if there was only one number available. And then in your tutorial first lucky guess experience, they would give you your first lucky coin that could be used for a hint later on once you leave the tutorial. Don't let them waste a lucky coin. Of course, that would also create a scenario if you had to actually pay for hints, where you would have to go online for hints if you were running into any other problems. You would have to hand out lucky coins fairly quickly, and for other reasons other than lucky guesses. But that's certainly a way you would gamify a game like this. Of course, this game doesn't even have sound effect or background music. I had to launch Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel just to have background music for this series. And that's what you've been listening to, is just their background music. So having a lucky coin pop up as an animation and something that would be nice to look at would also need a lucky Mario getting a coin out of a block sound effect type sound effect. But that also would be very nostalgic and part of the foundation of how video games have been developed and what people would really expect from video games. I'm sitting here trying to think of some other possibilities, and I guess there's some things that can be said about this. And I think we're going to have to just fill in the remaining numbers. And then maybe basic Sudoku will show us something. What can be said about this is that we know nothing, do we? It's just too high of a possibility that a 2 could still be here. So, yeah. If I filled in the rest of this, it's just 1 through 9. And I can't for certain remove a 1 or 4 from here. I can't for certain remove a 4 or 7 from here. I could possibly, I guess, remove the 5 and the 6 from that spot, and the 2 and the 3 from that spot, because if this is 2, then this can't be 2. If this is 3, then it can't be 2. If it was 3, you also couldn't have it be 4, but you could have it be 1. If it's 2, it could be 4, but it couldn't be 1. So, yeah, that gets you a little bit further to it. And we can apply, I guess, that same logic to this spot and this spot. So let's go ahead and fill in these cells with just everything. And then again, you're getting rid of the 2 and 3 in that spot, and the 5 and 6 in that spot, which would give you a hint that either 5 or 6 is probably here, or 2 or 3 is probably here, but it doesn't really have to be that way. Furthermore, I guess we can do that for the remainders of these columns. Let's not actually do that. Let's instead not even do that. Let's just do this 3 section here, because the numbers are slightly different now. We know it's could be 1, 2, but it can't be 3. Could be 4, could be 5. Can't be 6. Could be 7. Could be 8. Could be 9. But this spot won't be 8 or 9. I know that much. Then same, almost similar things. A 1 can be here, but not a 2. A 3. A 4, but not a 5. A 6. A 7. An 8. Or a 9. And then 8 and 9 are not a possibility there. And then you just have the remaining cells here, from which I don't think we can determine anything. So it would just be marking every single possibility. There might be some limitations that would further have to be placed on them, and eventually we'll get to that, but just by basics, it is kind of already done. So, at the very least, now we are at a spot where basic Sudoku rules might apply. We would have to find something that's either in a column or a row or a box that is exclusive, the only possible option, which we may get close to that, because but not 100% quite there. It is just going to be very tight to get into these corner boxes. I do expect that to be in the last step and the last stage. I wouldn't be surprised if there's also just a triplicate. If this is not 5 up here, then we know the 5 has to be here, so we will get the 5 done fairly quickly by basic Sudoku. This 7 I didn't consider, so we can mark that from being 7, and then same is true for that 7, which also is true for the 1s. And I had already looked at the 1s and didn't see that. Yeah, it's almost certainly because I'm using the black backgrounds, it's making it more difficult to see, although maybe I'm just using that as an excuse. Anyways, let's just double check to see what else I missed. Yeah, there's 2 things you can do here. You should be doing both at the same time, but my eyes and brain only want to do one thing. You can either look for a solo spot, which was what I was looking for, but you can also look for errors in your area of influence, which for me personally, there's a decent chance that there will be errors. Maybe we've got it down almost to there being only 1 column where a 5 could be. If that's the case, then we would eliminate the 5s here, which might help. Sorry, I went a little quiet there. 6s can't be here. Let's see, 8. So that can't be an 8, and that can't be an 8. Wait a minute. If that can't be an 8 and that can't be an 8, then these 2 have to be an 8. We could mark that as meaning something. I don't know what, but it is probably worth doing that. One of those 2 have to be an 8. If we could get another digit to pair with that, then we would know that those 2 digits are those 2 digits. Let's look at 9s. Yeah, we don't have a lot of progress with 9s. Let's go through it one more time, though. If we could eliminate the 1 here, then the 1 would have to be here. Probably. Unless there was some other way to eliminate the 1 here that could make the 1 be here. If we eliminated the 1 here, those 2 would be an option, but we'd at least know the columns. if this was 1, then this could be 6. If this was 1, then this could be anything. Between those two, does it have to be 1? No. If this is 6, then it could still be 8 or 9 or 1. It does seem like these two will interact to get us a solution earlier than you would seem it would usually give you a solution. We have 5s here. If we could get rid of 5 from being a possibility here, or here and here, we would know. I guess technically this one, and I need to go and recheck all these numbers, don't I? Their next numbers. That's the next step. Use the King's Path non-adjacent. There's, I guess, a bit of a redundancy here in the two variants. Non-consecutive and King are pretty much the same. I'm not having a lot of faith that I'll find anything else, but we did clean up some stuff. Let's look at the rules again, just to... we used hint 1, I forgot I didn't even use it. Same number can appear twice in the King's Path. Okay, so I haven't really been applying the King's thing, I've just really been applying the non-consecutive rule. Which the King is a completely different rule, isn't it? So let's apply that. And then we'll have to do Sudoku again afterwards. That means in the King's 8 cells directly surrounding each cell, a 4 cannot be. In this, a 5 cannot be. This a 1 can't be. We won't do that because that doesn't matter. Won't change anything. And this a 6 and 7 cannot be. And this 7 cannot be. And these an 8 cannot be. And this 5 cannot be. This 5 wouldn't remove any other 5s. It will remove this 5 though. This 8 won't remove any more 8s. This 3 eliminates this 3. Oh, we could have gotten this done I think a lot earlier. That's gotta be a 2. That's gotta be a 3. That changes a lot. This 9 eliminates that, so that's got to be an 8. And that's got to be a 9. We're just going to have this entire box filled. Maybe, with the exception of this 8 and 9. This 9, I guess, also removes a 9 from that possibility, and a 1 removes that. That loses a 1. Also, and 9 doesn't do anything here, 8 doesn't do anything here. So I think we have applied the King's rule basically for the first time now to all the numbers that are down here. So let's apply it now to the numbers up here. Just go down the line and move everything that's here, here, or here, touching this piece. Here, 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 touching that piece. Or here, here, touching this piece. This is not 8. And this is not 9. Okay. And so by applying the King's Rule, we've now reduced the possibilities quite a bit. And this is a great example, I guess, of where you actually have to understand and implement the strategies for each of the variants, or you will inevitably just hit a dead end. But also, not too bad of a dead end. We're 100 minutes in, and I'm not super frustrated by this puzzle, which, for its difficulty level, it should be way more frustrating, and yet I'm not feeling it. Maybe by doing the easier puzzle in between the previous episode and the last episode, or the last episode and the episode before that, maybe that did refresh me mentally quite a bit. So we have ones now. They potentially can be reevaluated. We're looking for a single one in a row, or we're looking for contradictory information to eliminate ones as a possibility, both of which may be the case now. Or there is always that third possibility that basically nothing changes and I'll have to find some other strategy. I guess I'll have to find some other strategy. I'd almost make some progress if this 9 was eliminated. Then the 9 would have to be in this row. We could eliminate all the 9s up here. That might make some helpful information. It still seems very possible that this could be 5-1 or 2-4. If this was a 4, that wouldn't change much. If this was a 1, that wouldn't change much. If this was a 2, it wouldn't change much. If this was a 5, well, wait a minute, let's consider 5s. If this was a 5 here, no, that doesn't change anything at all, does it? If there's a 5 here, it eliminates that from being a 5 just by basic Sudoku, which it is fine because it doesn't need to be a 5. If this was a 4 here, then it couldn't be a 4 here. So we've got to consider that scenario. We have to consider a very different scenario here. If there was a 1 here, it would eliminate all of those from being 1s. And there must be a 1 in this box. So if none of these were available, then this couldn't be a 1. So we need to see, is there a possible scenario for some digit which would run into that rare instance. There was a 2 here, that doesn't do anything. It's going to have to be blue boxes touching each other across black lines. In different boxes. And if that's not the scenario, then that won't matter. but then it also is going to have to be even more of a concern. Eventually, I guess this idea might work. There's a 5 here, 5 here, there could be a 5 there. But right now, it might be a case that it's not going to help. We do have, I guess, this. Can't be a 5, and it can't be a 6. So we know now it's a 3 or an 8 or a 9. Maybe we have some kind of overlap of some other numbers. Probably not. Do we even have another pair other than this 5, 6? We may just have to run a scenario, and we definitely don't have any empty space to run a scenario other than in my head. We were looking at 5s. Yeah, it does kind of feel like it's just going to fall down in this direction. 7s maybe. Eventually. Yeah. But we're not quite to that point. If there was a 7 here and it eliminated these 7s, that would mean a 7 cannot be here or here. So we could eliminate that. But it's just as possible right now that a 7 could be here that would eliminate those and leave a 7 be there. I just need to make more progress. Okay, wait a minute. If an 8 must be here, which it has to be either here. This 8 eliminates these 3, and this 8 eliminates these 3. This 8 also eliminates this, which means it can only be here because we do not have a combination ever. We would have never been able to make a combination to get to 8 there. That's 8. Alright, that's going to solve some things, at least get us closer. And not solve that much. We now know that a 9 is here or here, which tells me these two cannot be 9. So we'll eliminate those from being marked. And an 8, 9 has to be here, which means that can't be 9. This could be 8, and then a 9 could be here. I don't think it's really worth it to go back around in circles again. I think what we need to consider is these possible locations. Have we gotten it down to a point where 3 has to be here, which let's just mark that as elevate that. This must be a 3. And can we for certain say some other number has to be there? Wait a minute. Can we not put a 9 anywhere else? Nope. So there must be a 3 here. There must be a 9 here. before I commit to that, I'd like to look and see if we're certain as to why there must be a 3 here. Why can there not be a 3 over here? Combinations prevent that, and something. This just prevents all of these from being 3s. This prevents that and that from being a 3, so that has to be a 3. And then looking back on the 9s, this prevents all of these from being 9s. This killer cage stops that from being a 9. And then this 8 prevents those from being a 9. So we do have a proper 3-9 pair. 3-9. 3-9, which we'll just mark better. That eliminates this from being a 3 or 9. That eliminates this from being a 3 or 9. Doesn't guarantee that this can't be a 9, however. And let's see. I think the next step is probably still in this direction, that these two have to be a 6. They're the only two places where 6 can be, which then eliminates that from being a 6, and I don't think removes anything else. Then we have possibilities of 1s and 2s in a bunch of places. Is there a reason perhaps that a 2 could not be here? If we could prove that, then we would have a 2 in this column, which would eliminate the 2s here and then make this have to be a 2. So let's think of that whole concept again. If this was a 2, then this would have to be a 2, and then one of those would have to be a 2, which that works. So then, if it was the opposite, and this wasn't a 2, then one of these two would have to be a 2. And then this would be 5, and this would be 6. And then one of these two would be a 2. I think that scenario also works. We can, I guess, mark this as not being 7, and this as not being 7. Well, that is not being 7, that is possibly 7. And then that does tell me, just double check this, that is 7. So let's just look at basic Sudoku now. If a 7 is here, which it is, it at the very least means this can't be a 7. Because the 7 here, 7 here, 7 here would say that can't be a 7. If the 7 was here, then this couldn't be 6 or 8. If the 7 was here, then this couldn't be. I don't think this can be 8. Is there a scenario where this could be 8 and then there would be a 7 next to it? No. So we're getting extra information removed. If the 7 was here, could the 7 be here? It does seem like that's still possible. So we're not quite to that spot. If a 7 was here, 1 or 4 would still be fine in that spot. We can, let's see. I'm having to wrap my head around two concepts and two rules here. The king says it can't be the same number. The non-consecutive says in the plus format it can't be 1 away. That means this has got to be 2. Because it can't be 6, 1 away. Which means that's got to be 5. Which means that's got to be 1. Which means that's got to be 4. That's got to be 6. And we may not have to do too much. Really. Too much more to really boil down a lot of these solutions. You can just apply the king's rule and apply the non-consecutive rule. This can't be 5. 3, 9 here would mean that that can't be 8. Because if this was 9, that can't be 8. Well, wait a minute. Can it be 8? Am I making a mistake? I think I am. I think a 9 here would let that be 8. And a 9 here would let this be 8, but this stops that from being 8. Okay. Is there anything more we can do? We can mark that as a 2 just by basic Sudoku. And then that would mean this can't be a 3. And this can't be a 1. This also can't be a 4 or a 6. And then this can't be a 9. I'm pretty sure I've already in some places made some mistakes and thought a diagonal number that was 1 away should be eliminated. Yeah. Like this 8 makes me want to eliminate this 9, but I don't think actually that is the logic. Taking a moment here just to look at everything. We have a 3-9 pair, so we can do basic 3-9 pair removal. So let's consider this. No, it can't be 1. It can't be 2. It can't be 3. Can't be 4 because that would be consecutive to that. Can't be 5, can't be 6, can be 7, can't be 8, can't be 9. It's got to be 7. Just as the marking indicated. And that makes a 1-4 pair that may not be very powerful, but worth marking anyways in that spot, which means that can't be a 3. It doesn't mean that. No, it could be. It could be a 3 here, and a 1 here, and a 4 here. Do 1-4 pair. Also, I think implies that this still could be a 1. This could be a 1, 4, 1. And this can be a 1, 4, 1, 4. Yeah. If this was a 1 though, the king's rule, I'm thinking of the non-consecutive rule, would say that this can't be a 1. Which means neither of these can be a 1. Oh. Then the King's rule also says if this was 4 and this was 4, that wouldn't work. So this can't be a 4. Just look around all these numbers and make sure we're applying the King's rule appropriately. So far so good. So I do think we're probably at a point now where it's just going to have to be basic Sudoku. Which, now that we've made enough progress and we have the King's rule as part of this, if this was 1, this couldn't be 1. If this was 4, this could be 1. I do think we've probably made enough progress, though, to lock something in. Seems like 1 can only be in this row, can't be, well, it can't be in this row, it can only be in this cell, in this column. Why is this not possibly a 1? This can't be a 1 and this can't be a 1 because of King's rule. But I don't know if I see a reason why this can't be a 1. Just King's rule too. Also says this can't be a 1 and this can't be a 1. And that can't be a 1 in the middle. And this can't be a 1 because of King's rule. So that's got to be a 1. Then that row and that row eliminates those, and this column eliminates this, and then the non-consecutive rule eliminates 1 from being there, making that a 1. We may get all the ones locked in. Then we have 2 options here, with the 1 being here, which the non-consecutive rule of this 2 should have eliminated this 1 option a while ago. So that has to be 1. And then this 1 eliminates these, and this 1 eliminates these, and this 7 is here, and this 1 eliminates that, which makes this the only possibility to be a 1, which makes that only be the possibility, and we are done with 1s. We've also broken the 1-4 pair, which will continue to make progress, I'm sure. Let's see, 4s can't be here, here, or here. 4, because of King's rule, can't be here, so it has to be there, which then eliminates all those. And then non-consecutive says that couldn't have been a 4, and this eliminates that, so then that has to be 4. And we're going to solve, I think, a lot of this by just basic Sudoku, and there may very well not be any opening for any more trickery, since all the trickery really started in these 2 boxes, and then there's a little bit here and a little bit here. Once we've solved almost all of those boxes, it really does just have to be basic Sudoku solutions. We're done with 4s. Now we know 5s can't be here. So yeah, either this or this is a 5. That can't be a 5. There's 5 and 5 here. 5 eliminates that. There's only one place in this row where 5 can be, because King's rule says if this is 5, that would eliminate that from being 5. If this was 5, that would eliminate that from being a 5. One of these has to be 5. And then this 5 eliminates that possibility. So that's 5. Then no, don't know what is really eliminating the possibility of this being a 5. But also, if we look, there's only one place where the 5 can be in this column, so that has to be a 5, that has to be a 5, then that has to be a 5, then that has to be a 5, and we are done with 5s. And then that's a 2, 6, 9, whoops, we made a mistake. Thought I could get away with just putting in the rest of the marked down numbers, but at some point here we did make some kind of mistake. Let's just keep a count of how many mistakes get made. If it's just one though, that doesn't feel too awful to me. It does, however, for Sudoku solvers, I imagine, seem like one mistake too many. I guess inherently that there is a weird interpretation that can happen here around logic puzzles, in that if your logic is perfect, which is what humans would be striving for, they shouldn't make any mistake at all. They should be always somewhat on the right track mentally. They should know all the tricks and solve it. But human error, making mistake, forgetting something, misclicking, those are all very reasonable and viable, reasonable things that a human would do. It should be accounted for. Too many people are perfectionists, particularly no reason to be a perfectionist when playing a Sudoku puzzle. Yeah, I don't think I can, with just basic Sudoku, finish all of this. I might prove myself wrong here, but I do think we're going to have to look at all the new locations that now are touching locked in stone position numbers and eat away at the edges of the remaining puzzle spots to reduce the possibilities a little bit more. This has to be an 8 just by the column spot, which then that makes that be an 8. We're now done with 8s. And yep, it still may be worth it to go around in circles, even though the circles and the loops are getting fewer and fewer as we reduce possible numbers. We do now know that that's a 7 for sure, and that that's a 7 for sure, and that should be the end of 7s. So there should be a number that's sticking out right here, and with that, that should lead to more progress. That's the 2s. We only have the 3s and 6s left now. 137 minutes into this puzzle. We're not exactly breezing through Sudoku puzzles, but we're definitely doing a lot better than what it was, what we've seen in the past. Definitely I'm not feeling anywhere as frustrated. But I do think we are now down to the point where just basic basic king's move and non-consecutive are going to change some things. Like this 8 here means this has to be a 3. And then that has to be a 9. Which then makes that a 6. Which then makes that a 9. Which I'm trying to make sure that there's at least 2 solutions still left to play. I don't want to accidentally finish the puzzle early. Though it wouldn't really be a big deal if that happened. So that's this box, and this box done, this box, and this box done. And I think once again I'm proving myself wrong, because I don't think the not affected by King's Path rules mattered at all at the beginning. It didn't reduce the possible numbers at all. Yeah, and so let's just admit to that being a mistake now and get rid of the coloring. It's not helping at this point either, and it didn't help really at any point in the puzzle solving. And we're so late into the puzzle too. I could mark this as a pair and this as a pair, but we're about to finish the puzzle. In fact, it's just easier to demark that. What this is going to come down to is a non-consecutive means that that has to be 9, means that has to be 6, that has to be 3, that has to be 3, and then that has to be 6. And so there's only 1 9 left here. I did find out, by the way, in this game that you can just like right click on the puzzle to erase things, but weirdly it erases everything, not a specific number, so it's doing just the same as what clicking this and then clicking this or holding this down might do. But right clicking when you've selected a number and then like right clicking over the 1 to remove from the number pad doesn't work. And I definitely feel like that should work. I would love it if it was a case where my fingers were trained that left click meant always add a number, right click meant remove the number. And sure, if you left click twice to toggle, maybe that's, since that's already been established as the way it works, maybe you let that still be an option. Smart hint obviously would just tell me to fill in that, so we're not going to get anything from that. We needed to use this one hint, or honestly I'm not sure I really needed to even use this one hint, because I think, no, I did need this hint. I wouldn't have really thought it all the way through to say that this was a 498 in this box, and because of the non-consecutive rule, the 4 had to be in the middle. And that was the major trick to this whole puzzle. After that major trick, you had the secondary trick of solving all of these by just brute force trial by error to see the 4 different possible combinations that those could be, and then comparing it to the information that you already knew in that first step. The next hint would have said in box 5, at least one of the 3 these digits is 489, must appear in row 4, 5 in column 6. So at least a 4 or an 8 or 9 must appear in this column. I don't know why they're going about it on that way, otherwise all 3 would appear in row 4, column row 4 and 5, column 4 and 5. I'm not sure how they really got that 489 And 4, 8, 9 would have had to fit in these same columns. In row 7 and 8 in column 6, it cannot be a 6, 7, so it must include either a 4 or an 8. Row 7 and 8, column 6. Yeah, this one. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. Determining that row 4 and row 5, column 6 are not 4, 8. Okay, we figured that out. Now in box 5, 5 cannot be in a cage and is in row 6, column 4, 5, and 6, which, yes. Which sums up to 12. Therefore, the only combination, because a 5 is included, would be 1, 5, 6, with the 5 and 6 being separated. We got that. Several digits in row 6 can now be completed. We did that. In the cage in box 8 can be completed. I did that, but that took a really long amount of time to do, remembering the King's Remove rule. Then row 8, column 5 apparently could have been determined. The bottom 4 rows, that's a funny way to phrase them since they've been numbering all the rows up until this point, of the puzzle can now be completed, except a pair in box 9. Possibilities for row 4 and 5, column 7, which may not be a 5, 6 pair. Resolve row 9, column 7, and column 9. So the possibilities here resolve this and this. I probably did that, but I wasn't paying attention to doing that. And then either row 4, column 4, 5, and 6, or row 5, column 4, 5, and 6 must read 2, 7, 3. Neither one of those are correct. 2, 7, 3 is way over here. Row 4. Here. No. It's not talking about that. It's talking about, this would be row 4, 4, 5, and 6. And this would be row 5, 4, 5, and 6. And there is our 2, 7, 3. This is probably a very simplified solution to how I took all the time to just try every combination. And I don't know if there is some memorization or mathematics that comes into play to have known for certain that this must read 2, 7, 3. If it was row 4, 4, 5, and 6, then row 3, column 5 and 6, which would be those two, would be forced to read 51, 5, 1, which would force 7 and 8 to be neighbors somewhere in row 2, column 5 and 6. So if this was 5, 1, then this would have been 7 and 8. We probably did solve that. And then the last hint would have been that row 4 can now be completed, and row 3, column 7 is naked, which resolves row 3, column 1, and row 3, column 4. Now then row 3 could have been completed, and the rest of the puzzle, just by basic Sudoku. Notice that these handwritten hints are definitely skipping a lot of the solutions that you would have to do just by basic Sudoku. In fairness though, there's really no way you could write hints that says solve the puzzle with basic Sudoku, although it wouldn't be terrible if you did have on the smart hints, or even maybe not even a smart hint, just a little bit of guidance that says right now the next move can be solved with basic Sudoku. So much of this game is built around the variance, that warning me and telling me that right now there's a solution that can be solved with just the classic Sudoku rules wouldn't be a terrible thought. Maybe you just make it a pop-up warning that you could disable if you don't like it when you click Smart Hint. Unfortunately, I think almost all the Smart Hints are basic Sudoku Smart Hints. That's why I'm very much leaning into doing Smart Hints first, then reading the written hints, which are more complicated, take more steps, take more consideration. But yeah, if you were to implement a Sudoku game where there was some kind of currency that you earned to use lucky coins to get solutions or hints, that would be an example where it would be a waste of a lucky coin if there was just a basic Sudoku solution. But then maybe you could return the coin if that was the case, or have a percentage chance of returning the coin if that was the case. Not bad at 148 minutes for this puzzle. The cat's whiskers here look like they could be a fairly complicated game, but I'm in a good mood at the moment to try it next episode. But 6:13, I don't know what the 6 and the 13 really meant there, other than I think it went from a killer box that was a sum of 6 through a killer box that was 13. Yeah, at 148 minutes, that's better than the 160 minutes, and way better than 197 minutes. That being said, this puzzle 13, which really frustrated me, was only 148 minutes. These are all ridiculously high minutes. Pretty obvious, though, that the players of Sudoku are expecting you to, and the creators of this game, Studio Goya, Cracking the Cryptic, is expecting you to spend over 60 minutes and way over 60 minutes for your average player. Otherwise, you would have a breakdown here of hours. In a funny way, I wouldn't be surprised if the video game programming libraries struggle to implement functions to convert minutes into hours, because in most cases you may just want to count minutes. Although it would be very easy to convert minutes into hours. And then any even moderately well programmed game will be able to convert minutes into hours, even if there wasn't any helper library. It would be very easy. So I'm not jumping back to doing another simple puzzle. We'll keep the rest of the simple puzzles in reserve if I need a break, and I probably should have dipped into that reserve a lot earlier. But if we finish the remaining of these more difficult puzzles, we'll do the simple puzzles at the end as a grand way to wrap up. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.